Okay, so it all began when the late David Ogden Stiers gets put on trial for the crimes of imitating a really bad Russian accent, and the court calls up his pet koala thing to provide a witness testimony. And this hot old alien lady is like, "Is he or is he not your daddy?" And the blue furball is like, "Miga nalaquista!" Which, according to my pocket-sized Russian to English dictionary, is a racial slur that translates to, "I think the Mufasa movie was actually pretty good." Unfortunately, trying to trap your audience into a very obvious bait is tantamount to treason, and so the little guy gets exiled to the most commercial and culturally poisoned vacation spot in all of American history. But he takes a wrong turn and ends up in the Hawaiian Islands instead, the home of our sweet, adorable, and mentally stable kid protagonist, Lilo Pelikaye. We drop in as she's just about to give a very thorough explanation as to why she was late to hula class. Now, bear with me as I summarize the following. It is Sandwich Day. On Sandwich Day, Lilo must provide Pudge the fish a peace offering in the form of a peanut butter sandwich. However, she only had tuna at home, and feeding tuna to a fish would make her knowingly complicit in cannibalism. Ergo, Lilo had to run to the store to purchase peanut butter so she could make the aforementioned peanut butter sandwich. Otherwise, Pudge the fish would not be appeased and would use his weather-controlling god powers to decimate the ecosystem. And that is why Lilo was late to hula class. Then she beats the shit out of this ginger kid. Now, as one might expect, the school doesn't take too kindly to completely justified behavior, and Lilo is sent home to reflect on her actions. Unfortunately, the only one there to pacify the quirky ideations of an 8-year-old girl is her big sister Nani, who, sarcasm aside, did not sign up for this shit at all, dude. Like, look how hard this woman is trying right now. She can't be any older than, what, 19? Forced to drop out of college to support her sister and having to provide for another human being on a single minimum wage salary? How in fuck's sake can we expect her to parent and figure out how to do adult shit like paying the mortgage when she's still pretty much a kid herself? Could someone from the Disney Wish Foundation throw some of those sweet princess bucks her way, please? Seriously, girl is in dire straits here and could really use the help. Worse yet, this behemoth of a social worker comes down to assess the family situation, and Lilo is all like, "Whoa, you're like that one black dude from the Mission Impossible movies, nice!" And this man, Cobra Bubbles, is like, "Let's talk about you. Are you happy?" No, every waking moment is a constant reminder that my life has no inherent value. My grip on reality is tumultuous at best, and the little voices in my head keep telling me to gun down my enemies in a blaze of glory. My only sister batters me with a sack of bricks every hour on the hour, which I've internalized as my divine punishment for failing to save my parents from their untimely demise. Everything that has ever happened in this world is all my fault. Also, I think fat people are hot. So, Bubbles flags the household for encouraging body positivity, and Nani has to stop Lilo from offing herself inside of a pizza box cabinet. Things eventually cool down, and the girls are like,
"We're a broken family, aren't we?"
Maybe a little.
"And you like me better as a sister than a rabbit, right?"
Oh. Yes. Yes, I do.
I'm sorry, Elsa and Anna has the best what relationship? I couldn't hear you over the sounds of Lilo and Nani's insane power levels. Anywho, Lilo prays to Roy Disney to give her a positive influence, and the big guy in the sky is like, "You're up, blue dude." So Stitch makes his grand entrance on Kansas City, all prepped up to unleash hell on Earth, but the little squirt immediately gets T-boned by Truck Coon's older sister Big Rig-chan and is sent to the local animal shelter. Coincidentally, this is exactly where Lilo is buying her positive influence, and upon seeing this hideous, disease-riddled alien with 300 teeth, the girl is like, you're definitely not a dog at all, and you're probably gonna eat me in my sleep. But hey, it'll make for one hell of an obituary entry. So, the newly named Stitch becomes part of the family, and while every fiber of his being wants to pummel these two girls into a bloody pulp, he's forced to play nice thanks to the sudden arrival of his handler, David Ogden Stiers, codenamed Jumba, and his husband, Kevin McDonald, codenamed Pleakley. So Stitch spends the rest of the day acting like a salty-ass bitch, and Lilo takes it upon herself to instill some humanity in him by introducing the little guy to one of America's greatest pastimes, racism. Now, Lilo concocts this big hilarious prank to get back at a bunch of ignorant self-serving tourists who treat her like some kind of exotic animal by pretending a regularly scheduled siren test is actually a warning signal that an incoming tsunami wave is going to come down and kill their pasty white asses. But instead, Stitch makes Nani quit her job. So like any sensible person, Nani understands that Stitch is not a goddamn dog and opts to put him out of their misery. But then Lilo is like, I didn't want to have to do this, sis, but you've left me no choice. Oh no, don't you dare. Don't you fucking dare, Lilo! Too late! I hereby invoke Ohana Law. So, Lilo convinces Nani that Ohana, a concept in which nobody gets left behind or forgotten, is actually a federal law with severe legal repercussions should they break it, and she gets to keep Stitch. Unfortunately, Bubbles shows up at the door already knowing Nani is unemployed, even though it hasn't even been a full day yet. Jesus Christ, does this guy work for the union too? Stitch fucks him up with the book, and despite recognizing that this thing is not a goddamn dog, people, he's still just like,
new job. Model citizen.
So, Nani and Lilo organize a joint effort in order to reach their respective goals. But unfortunately, Nani is unable to play Elvis on the guitar, thereby making her a model citizen, and Stitch keeps maiming the people at his job interviews. That's when our homeboy David comes to the rescue, and he's like, guys, I know your lives are probably going to be ripped apart in the next 24 hours, but there's these sick-ass waves I need to get at, and it's no fun doing it by myself. So, can you guys put aside your emotional baggage for just a sec and help a dude out? So, they all bust out some moves, and for the first time in his life, Stitch actually finds enjoyment in something other than unwanted destruction. Then the little dude inadvertently drags a 7-year-old girl down into the ocean. And of course, guess who was there to conveniently catch the whole thing? This apparent attempt at child manslaughter was the straw that broke the camel's back, and Lilo is officially marked to get repossessed by the state. Now, I'm a sarcastic son of a bitch on a good day, but the following scene is the most emotionally wrought moment in the entire movie, and it would be terribly out of pocket, even for me, to even attempt to diminish that. So instead, please enjoy the unsung glazing of a man who has ranked Lilo and Stitch as his favorite Disney movie of all time. This sequence about the impending loss of a beloved family member portrays an emotional gravitas that I dare say no Disney movie in the modern canon has ever been able to replicate. The character acting is so deliberately subtle and soft in a way that makes it all the more delicate and heartbreaking. The true tragedy of the situation is shown when Lilo picks up on the wrong emotional cue, revealing that she doesn't fully grasp what's about to happen to her, whereas Nani understands all too well what will. Nani caressing her sister under the moonlit sky as Stitch observes in silence is underscored by the voice actress's intentionally harbored performance of Aloha Oi, a song that, while typically used insincerely, is incredibly appropriate given its historical context. When we switch over to Lilo's room where she permits Stitch to leave and promising to never forget him, her candor is noticeably relaxed, revealing through subtext that she's very much gotten used to people unceremoniously leaving her. Her attempts at psychoanalyzing his behavior is a means to understand her own loss that she was left unable to process following the untimely death of her parents. And Stitch's wordless departure, an overt shift from the unruliness we've seen thus far, signifies that he's feeling an emotion he can't properly recognize, and it's not until he reads the Ugly Duckling book that he's finally able to put a word to why he feels so unsettled. Lost.
Despite leaving the Pelikai family as a means to spare them the pain that his presence brought upon them, something about him is lost, a sense of identity that leaves him directionless. Now he can't find it because he was never meant to have it in the first place.
Alright, enough of that shit. Let's get back to the fun stuff. Agent Pleakley tells his husband that they've been fired from the extraction job, which in Jumba's vernacular translates to bigay du crime. So, what follows is a series of events that highlights how not terribly bright these characters are. 1. Jumba very politely asking Stitch to let himself get killed. 2. Nani and David leaving a child alone on the day she's about to get picked up by social services when they could have easily let the guy look after her for an hour while Nani gets interviewed. And 3. Stitch leading a mad scientist to his home of very fragile human beings and causing the entire house to get blown to smithereens. Look, it's been a long night for these characters, alright? The best decisions don't always come to you. Anywho, Bubbles finally picks Lilo up, and just to further punctuate how everyone other than the girl is just a little bit stupid, she very easily breaks out of his government car, walks 10 feet away from the scene, and the big guy suddenly has no idea where she is. To make matters worse, an even bigger guy shows up on behalf of the Alien Federation to take Stitch back, and just to show how ethically misaligned the guy is, he has absolutely no qualms about kidnapping a little girl in the process. Now look, I know Gantu's kind of an ass, and he definitely fits the bill of the all cops are bastards mantra, but look, does anyone else think this 50-foot bipedal shark man is kind of, well, you know. Anyway, Stitch escapes, but Lilo doesn't, and the squad has to lock in to save our favorite girl. They come up with a crackerjack plan to chase Gantu down by hijacking a commercial airliner, and just to make sure nobody suspects a thing, they take the extra time to disguise the plane by painting the entire thing red to make it look like a spaceship. How brilliant is that? A badass air battle ensues, and in a stunning display of public mindfulness, they manage to stop Gantu and save Lilo without any casualties whatsoever. Anywho, no one actually dies from all this. But before we can get our happy ending, hot old alien lady finally drops in to finish the job. She fires the alien bozos, but is left aghast when Stitch comes up to her and is like, "Ma'am, I'm very sorry I called you an infertile bitch with deteriorating performance issues. It was incredibly disrespectful of me to insinuate that without any evidence to back it up. And I've since learned that you should always ask first before making assumptions like that." Now, as mildly as impressive as that is, it's not quite enough to avoid arrest. That's when Lilo rolls up like an absolute G and is like, "Hey, so I bought that guy at the pound fair and square. This piece of paper says I own him, and that completely overrides any and all state, federal, international, and intergalactic legislation that says otherwise." And the head of the entire Galactic Federation is like, "Well shit, can't argue with that. Acquitted." So the family is all back together again, and Cobra reveals that he's a former CIA agent who willfully resigned due to early onset baldness. Nani finally gets the support system she should have gotten from the very beginning, they fix up their home, and Lilo is all like, "Wow, I no longer feel the urge to violently murder my classmates in a blaze of righteous fury. I guess having a friend by your side really does help after all, huh?" And Stitch is like, "You said it, sister. Now let's jam out to the greatest rock and roll singer of all time, Winona Jude." There's no place I'd rather be than on my surfboard out at sea, lingering in the ocean blue. And if I had one wish come true, I'd surf till the sun sets beyond the horizon. Ah, wiki wiki, my lohi lohi, lawe, my kapapa henalu. Flying by on the Hawaiian roller coaster ride.